Hello and welcome to a special three-part podcast series. This is part three, presented by Pavion to celebrate Women's History Month. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Moody. And in this series, we have been highlighting the voices of women within the company who have overcome challenges and driven meaningful change. In each episode, you hear from female employees at Pavion who all share personal stories of resilience and the humanitarian work that has helped to shape their careers. Plus, we talk about the women in history who have help to inspire them to keep pushing forward. And we are here to launch, as I said, episode three in this series, the last one. Today, my guests are Laura Armour and Susan Post. Thank you both for being here today. Excited to be here for episode three. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. It's kind of the culmination of everything we've been talking about. Before we kind of get into more of the conversation, Laura, starting with you, can I ask you to give us a brief bio if you can, please?
Yes. So I am Laura Armour, and I am the inside sales manager for the West at Pavion. And I have been in the business, the security industry, for over 35 years. My background has been a mix of service operations, contracts, and sales. So I've got to see both sides of the business, both operationally and then on the front lines in a sales position.
And Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan Post. You've seen me already on the two other series. I am the Chief Integration Strategy Officer of Pavion. I've been with Pavion 3 years, but in the security business for 28 years.
So I'm going to start off, because this is episode three, with kind of a generalized question, because I'm curious. We are seeing more and more, and thankfully, recognition of Women's Month internationally, nationally. So let's start off here. What are your thoughts with seeing that growing trend of having more people and more companies pay attention to celebrating women?
I think it's great, right? As you just heard by the introductions, both Laura and I have been in the security business for a number of years. When I think we both share the same probably stories that there weren't many women, particularly in operations or sales, right? There were usually back office, and I think with the recognition and the numbers growing, it's a feel good moment, right? And I think I said on maybe the second series of this podcast, there's still work to be done, right? We still have challenges, but it's rewarding to see the complexity of the conversations that happen in the different viewpoints. So I'm really happy to see where this industry has progressed to celebrating women as well.
I think it's also interesting. Like, I did listen to the other two podcasts, and Susan talked about being the only woman in the room, and so did some of the other women that you've talked to. And some people might think that was exciting, and it was. I mean, it was exciting in a way to be the only woman in the room. But the real excitement is when there are other women in the room, when there are other people invited to the table that you share those connections with. So celebrating like we are now and today is exciting, because it means that we're getting to where we all are looking at the gifts and talents that each other brings and not basing it on our gender necessarily. It's taking a separate little bit of a recognition to call that out, but in our everyday life, we are integrating, to use a term we use often at Pavion.
Yeah. And to your point, Laura, one woman is great, but more than one woman is even better, right? And when you have those women get together collectively, which I will kind of admit this before we got started here today, it took a little time, because it's easy as women to want to share things and want to kind of, explore different topics. And it's a great feeling, as you said, to see more and more women coming into those spaces. So what are some of the most significant contributions that you would say women have made in history that continue to inspire change today? Laura, I'm going to start with you there.
So when we were looking at the people that we wanted to talk about, or that we felt connected to, I chose Maya Angelou. And I didn't choose her because she was a business person that I admired. I chose her because she's a human that I admired. And her life journey took many twists and turns. She was a singer, a dancer, a poet, a civil rights activist, but she was also a lifelong learner. She didn't go to college. She was self-educated because she had a thirst for learning. So I think the women in history have demonstrated that desire to learn and to contribute. And that's what's exciting. Like the joy in life comes from that continual learning and trying to find fulfillment until you find your lane. And so that's kind of, I think, those women in history struck out. They picked a lane and then they charged forward to try to make a difference.
And I know, Susan, you've answered this question before, but do you have any takes on either what Laura said or just kind of a culmination of all the things that you've shared or heard others share throughout the series?
I think it's a little bit of all of that, right? And it was interesting as I was prepping and thinking about this third series that I talked about Marie Curie, I've talked about my 7th grade teacher, and I started thinking about just collaboration and recommendations. And I always fall back on a book that I read called Grit by Angela Duckworth, right? And what it is, it's a book about perseverance and how you have to persevere. We talked about collaboration and so on. So I think I take nuggets from everything, as I mentioned, right? And when I think about folks that I admire, I think about women that have helped me in my career. And I started thinking about Tracy Long, who at the time was a president of a fire division back in the Tyco days. And Tracy and I met I came into, she was running Canada at the time. And I met Tracy. And at the time, as we said, there weren't a lot of women in leadership. And quite honestly, way back in time, women in leadership really weren't of the mentoring type, right? So, and I met Tracy, and when I met Tracy, she was so accommodating, and our conversations were just that. They were conversations, right? What's your challenges? And we would talk like we had known each other for 20 years, right? And I really look at that relationship and that friendship as someone who has helped me with decisions that I may not have been comfortable making, having that conversation 20 years ago, but Tracy was someone that I looked up to, and I still look up to, and I know I could call her tomorrow with "What do you think?" question, and she would help me. And I think for women in leadership, we all have to realize that no one's trying to take your position; they're trying to help you now, and you have to just kind of find those relationships.
I want to dig a little deeper with regard to some of the achievements we just heard. Laura, you talked about Maya Angelou and, you talking about some very personal takes there, Susan, your teacher and a fellow coworker. But what lessons can we learn from the achievements of those influential women, either in history or currently in our lives?
I think that we can learn to give grace to each other. Um, because we're united, whatever goal we're trying to achieve as women, whether it's in your career and politically or in your personal life, right? We've talked before that it takes perseverance and that you have to keep trying even if you fail, and taking the life lessons. But we also need to give grace to each other, right? And when Susan mentioned, back in the day that maybe those leaders were not mentors or whatever, I mean, I think women historically have a history of being mean to each other because it was very competitive in a way for us to try to achieve things or whatever. And the shift that I've seen, especially, I'd say the last 20, but especially like the last 10, 15 years with the momentum of learning how to give grace to each other and to learn from each other and to listen to each other. And that's where we're finding our power, is in letting down our walls and not being afraid of each other. And then nobody else has to be afraid of us, right? Like, we can achieve more when we're walking side by side and hand in hand than we can,
I love that. I love the word grace, right? And I said it as recently this morning to someone that we always have to assume positive intent, right? I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning in business to say, "Hey, I'm going to go poke someone in the chest to give them a hard time," right? You have to. I approach my day that everybody has positive intent, and you move from it. And I love the word grace because I do think we in today's world we do have to be nicer to people and assume positive intent, because it's business. This is, you never know what someone has going on in their life, but people will always remember how you made them feel. And I try to remember that every day.
Yeah, and sometimes we're so passionate about something that it comes across to some people as aggression, right? And sometimes if you take a step back and realize the passion behind something, or whatever, the desire to fix something or to have the answer, there's a passion that comes out. And sometimes I feel like that gets confused because there are some gender biases obviously still around about how men behave versus how women behave. And sometimes I think that can be a struggle to know how to communicate in a way, and I don't know, to meet people where they are, right? To recognize the humanness in each other. And that's one of, Maya Angelou had like so many quotes, right? And I went back and listened to recordings about her different autobiographies over the years. And one thing that she said was, I am human. Therefore, there is no human that is alien to me. And that just struck me that at the very core of everything, we are all human. And that requires giving grace to each other. So that's what I'm trying to keep in the forefront of my mind. We all are under stress, whether that's personal or work or political stress that we might be feeling. But step back, take a moment, and give grace to each other.
So many good points there. I think we could have a lot of quotes to push out there and put on posters because really words to live by, especially Susan. I want to talk about what you said with regard to never knowing what other people are going through because we've all had our bad days, right? And we know how we act on our bad days and how we try to keep things in check. And you never know if that other person may be going through something similar. So great words of wisdom there from both of you. So let me ask you this: what unique challenges, and there are a number of them, would you say women historically have faced in achieving influence, and how have they overcome them? And I know you've touched on some of them, but maybe kind of giving another layer to what we've already addressed here.
I think for me, and it goes back to what we said early on in the series, it's having confidence in yourself and in having the ability to have a voice, right? So I think one of the challenges that there's more, I don't know if saying it's more comfort in today's environment to share your opinion. And I think that's one of the challenges that women have overcome because they do have a seat at the table now and can add that opinion that may be different than what may be at the round table.
I recently listened to an audiobook by Julia Bornstein, and it's called When Women Lead. And it's a story of her life, but it's also, she interviewed and she talked to so many people that did different things. It could be Gwyneth Paltrow, it could be entrepreneurs, it could be people seeking venture capitalist funds, and women, obviously, because when women lead, the title gives it away. But it talks a lot about gender bias, and it's about getting the seat at the table, but then being able to communicate and being able to be understood, and that the biases that come with our genders have taken, they're not totally broken down. They've broken down a lot, but understanding, because someone may speak softly or they may show empathy versus being a loud talker that's very demanding. And it was a very interesting book to see how a bunch of different women dealt with all sorts of challenges, but it all is mostly surrounding about how we think and how we communicate slightly differently than men do. And I think we've influenced men to in some ways emulate us, and in some ways women have emulated men. So we're beginning to blend, I hope, what's the best of both of us to be successful not only in business but in the world, right? And I think when I look back at the history of my career, this is going to sound silly, but out of these 35 plus years I've worked in the industry, I have only worked for a woman once, and that was in the last 10 years. And so I was mentored by several men during my career and over the years that helped me to get a voice at the table, to be at the table, encouraged me, that I learned from, that I am so grateful for. But the experience of working for a woman and a leader and someone, it, we manage in a different way. We have conversations in a different way. There's that empathy on things that we as women go through. And, I know there's lots of role reversals in the world, with women working and men staying at home taking care of, children. But women by nature are caregivers and are in positions where there's a whole nother life besides your career that you're running at the same time, with lots of demands. And it might be parents, it could be your spouse, it might be your children, right? So I think we're blending the best of both worlds now, and we need to keep that dialogue open, and we need to keep moving forward.
I think it's an interesting point. I never thought of it until you said it. I have, in my 28 years, I have never reported into a woman.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
which is sad, right? Which is sad.
yeah. Well, some of it
I've just alongside them, but never reported into.
But see, that's what's great about the generation that's coming behind us, right? Because we invite, like a lot of my spiritual life, my church life, as a Catholic, has to do with personal invitation, right? Asking somebody to volunteer. You can put an announcement in the bulletin, we need volunteers, right? It's totally different if you tap someone on the shoulder and you said, hey, I'd like you to come to this, whether it's inviting them to a industry meeting, or whether, it's talking to a friend about maybe making a career change. I have openly invited people to come and then work to mentor and coach and help people, bring people along. And there's nothing more satisfying, and sad a little bit when they leave the nest, but nothing more satisfying than seeing that person that you saw the potential in grow and then go on to be extremely successful in the industry in different roles, and it's because we have to invite each other. We have to make space for each other and continue to invite and engage and share the excitement. And the security industry is like terribly weird. And for a lot of reasons, but most of us did not grow up unless there was a family business saying, I'm going to be in the security industry. I took a temp job, really in an administrative role, and then liked the company and liked the people, and then went on to learn the business. And it's kind of like, once you fall in, you never get out. But it's also great because the connections, it's big and it's small and it's connected, and people. And that's what's so exciting about when we go to industry events and, ISC West, or whether it's GSX, and the connecting with all of the people. And we are welcoming people, and we all compete with each other, but we all know each other. Some people we've worked with and some people we haven't. And I'm never that person that's like, oh my God, that person used to work at so-and-so or whatever. If you like somebody and you worked well with them, why wouldn't you invite them to come along and be part of what you're doing? And that's what's so exciting about Pavion. All of these individual companies coming together to become one Pavion, to recognize gifts and strengths and best practices, and to build the best customer experience that we can. I love being part of change. And I am not afraid of change, and I love a challenge. So we just have to keep challenging each other to do better and to bring the younger generation along.
And that perfectly tees up my last question. I cannot believe we're almost out of time here. So, kind of a combo. Why is it important to continue empowering women in all spheres of life? And then what steps can individuals and communities take to support women in becoming those influential leaders?
I think we hit on a lot of it earlier, right? With what Laura and I mentioned, but I think continuing having open communications, collaboration, look behind you to see who's looking for the next opportunity, and be open to it. I just think in accepting, as I'll go back to assuming positive intent, right? I think we have to just be kinder, nicer, and accommodating, and open to continue the conversations that make us better, right? I think it's simple. When we try to overcomplicate it, that's when things don't happen. That don't happen.
And I think when we educate ourselves and we empower each other, that there are so many ways that women contribute to the world. Better health, better education, creating opportunities, in some cases it's breaking cycles of poverty. It's, there's so much good work that comes, and I think it comes from our ability to empathize with people, and we just have so much that we can contribute to the world. And we just have to find our own way to fit in and to keep growing, right?
I'm going to say this, and I don't know if this is the appropriate way to end it, but I'm going to end it on 2 4-letter words. If we can, what you said, be kind and give grace.
Mhm.
GRAC. Oh, that's 5, isn't it?
We'll take 5.
We'll take the 4-letter word as kind, and grace is 5. It's been a long day, but if we could just, be more patient with one another, uh, give more leeway, have that grace, be kind to not only women, to everyone. Imagine what this world could look like. Pretty amazing place. And I will learn how to count. I was going to say by the next podcast, but there are no more in the series. I'm so sad that the series is over. Laura Armour, Susan Post with Pavion. Thank you so much for being here today. I've so enjoyed this. Susan, you have been along for the ride the whole time. And Laura, thank you for being on board for this final chapter of the series. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciated the opportunity to be part of the conversation.
I want to thank all of you for listening to today's episode of our Women's History Month series brought to you by Pavion. We hope you have been inspired by the stories of strength and perseverance shared by our amazing women. And be sure to check out the previous episodes in the series if you missed them, where we continue to celebrate the incredible women who make a difference every day. Definitely want to check out all 3 of the episodes in this series because it is a good one. Thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. We hope to connect with you on another podcast soon.